I just want to say, I really appreciate having the opportunity to also work on a subway station project, and it's sort of always been a dream of mine. I've always been sort of following the Arts for Transit project because I generally work as a mosaic artist. So I usually work in mosaics, and then they asked me to propose something, and it was for the Rockaway beach area. I wasn't really sure which station yet, and I was really excited about that because most of the work that I do has to do with waterfront communities, and I actually spend a lot of time in that area myself, and go out there regularly fishing and hanging out in some of the local Irish bars and stuff out there and whatnot. And so I was extremely excited. And then, as I started working on my proposal, I found out that they actually didn't want me to do mosaic. They wanted me to do something in stained glass. At first I was sort of like kind of surprised, but then I got really excited about it because I started thinking, I was like, that's something that's like, it's an Irish-American, historically Irish-American neighborhood, and there's nothing that Irish-Americans like more than stained glass. We really love stained glass, and we really love it. It's true, And if you don't believe me, if you go out to the Rockaways, they have a stained glass shop right in the Rockaways, and so I'm not joking. This is. But this, the other thing about this stained glass place here, though, this didn't used to be here 5 years ago. This used to be a bar that was here called the Palm Gardens, and it was my favorite bar in all of New York City. And I'm kind of a connoisseur of bars, but I'm not going to go on about this too much because if I start talking about it, I won't stop. But at any rate, I'll get back to why this bar is so important. But at any rate, but that's sort of, I'm also kind of bringing it up because it is sort of part of my artistic process. I know it seems like I'm kind of getting off the subject a little bit, but, I generally, when I find out that I'm doing a project, I do a lot of research and read a lot about the history of the area. And then I kind of also spend a lot of time wandering around, going to bars. But, so I went out there, and I usually always drive out there, but this time, since I was working on the MTA project, I decided to take the train. And the first thing that you see when you're coming over the train to the Rockaways is Bungalow Pier that sticks out into the harbor, and out into Jamaica Bay. And it's kind of like, there's sort of all these different houses sticking out on a pier, and some of them are boarded up, and some of them are clearly occupied. At any rate, these piers is kind of like a unique thing, like that. That's the only one left in the entire state of New York that exists like this, and it was sort of a big deal, like that people used to have these piers used to actually extend from like Beach 84th Street all the way up to 109th Street, and most of that is now landfill where they've is developed and whatnot. Some of the piers have just been destroyed in fires and whatnot, but it's something that like existed going back to the turn of the century. And it was sort of, an interesting way of living that I think kind of shaped the community out there because it was a very tight-knit community. And like when you had like people, it was mainly like a lot of working-class Irish Americans and from the Bronx would go out there in the summertime and spend their summers there, and they have these bungalows that they would, live in for the summer, which actually, naturally the way the quality of life has changed for most people is something that's totally impossible now. But, so some of the people live in them year-round. As you can see, a lot of them have been burnt down, and there's different reasons why they don't exist anymore, but there's some people still living out there all year round. The point is, all these people kind of share this one common little narrow passageway to get into their individual houses. So it's a very tight-knit community, and it sort of shapes the environment they live in and whatnot. And so this is sort of the design, one of the designs I proposed in the stained glass, showing the bungalow pier, and it's got bowline knots in the corner, sort of wrapped in. So the bowline knots obviously is like one of the strongest knots that you can tie, and sort of you get the idea, it's strong knots, strong, tight-knit community. And actually there's these little berries down in the corner because I was out there one day and there was these Russian ladies picking these berries, and I was like, what are you doing? And they gave me these berries, and I started eating them. And I couldn't understand what they were saying, so I had to go home and look it up. But I think they were choke cherries or something. So the next piece that I did, this is sort of the piece that I did, is sort of has to do with like a tidal wave washing all of these bungalow houses out into the sea, and kind of referencing some of the stuff I was talking about a minute ago. So one of the things about about this neighborhood though is a waterfront community, so it's unlike any other part of New York City. It's seen more damage from storms and fires and plane crashes and whatnot than any other part of the city historically. I think that's also sort of part of like waterfront communities, is that just like there's a certain like kind of fleeting nature of the landscape, and the people that live there have tremendous sort of resilience about them, and they keep generations of people living out there just keep rebuilding their houses and whatnot. Of course, right now there's a different kind of rebuilding going on. I haven't mentioned yet is that part of the thing that they told me when I was doing the proposal is you can't have any text in any of the pieces because it invites other people to respond with graffiti and whatnot, which was fine for me because generally when I draw, most of the stuff that I write, I always write it out in nautical flags, so it's kind of coded, so that way if somebody buys something, I can write really bad things about them and they won't know it, But at any rate, so what I did was, like when I was talking about that bar earlier, is like a lot of the bars out there, and that one, which actually closed down, this is from a different bar, have these signs that say, no sniveling and be good or be gone. Which, I guess it's, no sniveling is like no whimpering or no complaining, and be good or be gone, you're out the door. But at any rate, I kind of was thinking about those two expressions that I'd always seen in these bars out there, and then I kind of thought about them in more of like an environmental twist, I guess. And when I was thinking about that panel, I put the nautical flags to spell out, this one says no sniveling, and I was sort of thinking about the kind of resilient nature of the people in the neighborhood, and like how they just have generations have always rebuilt everything, and also sort of maybe like a forewarning about environmental hazards to come, that we can't really complain or whimper about stuff that we didn't do anything to prevent. So that's that one, and then the next one is sort of similar, like kind of a little bit of an environmental twist on the same idea. The nautical flags in this one spell out be good or be gone, which also I guess I'm kind of using a little bit of an environmental twist, and kind of thinking about, the area, the Rockaways is, sits on Jamaica Bay, which is the largest nature reserve in the city, and it's also this shipping route where millions of gallons of jet fuel goes to JFK every day, and so obviously there's always the potential for something pretty horrible to happen. But kind of back to that slide though, like I was kind of thinking about it more in a positive way too, just sort of showing these garbage barges that come through there as well, with this one being filled with like all like recycled glass, which I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that comes out, just because it's glass. And yeah, but I just wanted to say something, that tugboat there is sort of like one of the old New York style tugboats, and when I was a kid growing up in Massachusetts, they had this New York tugboat down the street from my granny's house, and I don't know, but they just recently knocked it down to make an Exxon gas station. So I kind of use that as the model for the tugboat. That's just a little personal thing I threw in there. But anyways, then the next one is this is kind of more of the same. This is like a piping plover, which is an endangered bird. It's an endangered bird that nests along the dunes and stuff and whatnot. And there's a certain area right around there that's a protected area that is one of the only areas where they still make their nests in the kind of sort of the whole New York, New Jersey, blah blah blah. And this sort of says the same thing. It's be good, be gone, birds sitting, birds flying away. Pretty clever. All right, cool. Good. And the final one I'm going to talk about is just it's got the Cade Meal of Fault, which is in Gaelic 100,000 welcomes. Yeah, basically, it's sort of it's got the channel markers with the red on the right, which basically means you're entering the safe harbor and whatnot. I thought this was sort of appropriate just because in some sense you're this area is like this kind of peninsula that's separated, you know, sort of isolated community way outside the city that sort of has its own kind of unique culture and flavor. But then at the same point, it's this place that we all visit in the summertime, and that they're dependent upon everybody else from New York coming out and visiting. And so it's a place that, you know, is also like everybody's playland, which is also the name of the big amusement park that used to exist there. That's sort of an iconic New York place that was on before I lived here. And that's what those nautical flags say down there, is playland. I think that's pretty much it.